Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again, back with more Karen stories. In this video, an entitled vegan Karen sued my restaurant because we are supposedly running an illegal meat grilling business. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. So I used to work fast food, the kind of meaty fast food that was lucky to even have a vegetarian and gluten-free option. Anyway, one day I get a call from a woman asking about any vegan bread options, while citing some PETA page she saw online. I told her the information might be outdated as I was fairly positive that we had no vegan breads. Nevertheless, I told her I would check with the GM, who is a very by-the-book professional person, but as I expected, my GM also said there were no vegan breads available anymore. Then this exchange happened, and to get an idea of how she sounded, imagine the most condescending voice someone could muster. Me, I'm sorry, I just checked with our GM and we have no vegan breads. Her, well, do you have gluten-free? Me, yes we do. Well sir, gluten-free is a vegan product and you just told me that you don't have any vegan breads. Me, who actually knows what gluten-free is, I'm sorry but gluten-free doesn't mean vegan and our bread unfortunately is not vegan. Well, why isn't it vegan then? I could take a moment to check the specific ingredients if you would like. See, you cannot even tell me why it's not vegan, just that it isn't. So why are you telling me it ain't if you don't even know while I'm already telling you that's what gluten-free means? Me, I'm sorry but it's not what gluten-free means and I would gladly show you what… I don't even know why I'm arguing with some teenage fast food worker, just let me speak to a manager. Me, I am a manager. Her, well then stop arguing with me about stuff you don't know anything about. Show some respect and make me an order with gluten-free bread. So we used non-vegan gluten-free bread for her order. Ended up asking my GM why it wasn't vegan, it's because the bread was made with egg. And by the way, Ripe Stars, while I do appreciate the petty revenge / malicious compliance, I have a feeling that OP could potentially get in serious trouble for this. Or the restaurant he works at least. But hopefully the Karen is not vindictive and follows through with something like that. Anyway, the next one, aka the title story, is titled Vegan Karen Sued My Barbecue Restaurant Claims We Are Devils. Owning a restaurant comes with a lot of stress and one of them is the potential for getting sued. I need to make sure that everything is working right and nothing goes wrong because I want customers happy and safe. But I also don't want to end up on the wrong end of a lawsuit because somebody got hurt or got sick. So my restaurant is in a small town strip and people that live in the town can live basically next to the shops. It's a really weird setup in my opinion and ripe for problems to pop up. This strip has a few restaurants, a bar and a movie theater. Places where the noise level can increase and every store has gotten at least one noise complaint. Being a barbecue restaurant, we don't really have issues with being loud and rowdy, but complaints will always happen, I guess. I got a complaint that was a little bit different and I wasn't sure how to approach it. A woman walked into the restaurant and I was running the front of house. I was told somebody was asking for the owner, and as soon as I looked at her, I knew it was gonna be trouble. It was a Karen right out of a dictionary. I actually thought the Karen haircut had died out, but I guess it's still alive. Me, hello, can I get you a table? Karen, you most certainly cannot. What do you smell? I smell the food. Karen, exactly, this place smells horrible. That meat stench travels outside and I can smell it from my house. Me, well, we smoke some of our meat like the brisket. We cannot really contain things like smells. Karen, you are helpers of the devil. Do you know how toxic and horrible it is to eat animal products? Humans were born to be vegan, not eat this filth. The smell and smoke are getting into my body and making me sick. You're giving me cancer. Me, okay, what do you want me to do? I cannot control that you live right next to a barbecue restaurant. You're going to smell things. Karen, shut this place down obviously. Me, no, I think we are done here. Please leave. Karen, you haven't heard the last of me. She was right about that threat because a few days later, I got a letter from her lawyer letting us know that she was filing a lawsuit against us, mainly claiming that we were unsanitary and leaching poison into the air. I don't know where these Karens get lawyers that are willing to take these things to court. Like, I'm legitimately curious if some lawyers will never say no if they just get paid, or if they are equally as crazy as the vegan Karen lawyers out there. By the way, I just want to say that I don't really have anything against vegans. I don't personally agree with their philosophy of eating meat is dangerous or deadly or satanic though. I just hate this particular vegan because she is trying to run my business into the ground, because she decided to move in right near the place without thinking about it. I was not going to walk into a court case without preparation or anything, so I had to speak to a lawyer and try to explain why I was being sued. I guess he also thinks that a restaurant being sued either means that a person slipped and fell, or a worker got hurt due to negligence, or maybe somebody got sick from bad food. Not the smoke from cooking the meats being toxic. He advised me just to cover my bases to get a full analysis done of my restaurant, making sure the kitchen was up to code, the food storage systems were proper, the smokers were clean, the meat was fresh, and anything else that could be relevant. All of it came back clean, and it cost me a ton of money to have the full inspection done when it wasn't time for my normal yearly one that I always do. During all of this waiting, Karen was going around and even hanging out in front of my restaurant, but off the property, telling people not to eat in my restaurant because it is toxic. Not giving details that she means meat in general is toxic, but acting as if there's something wrong with my restaurant. The business went down from her actions, and I was done with her crap. If she was going to sue, then I was gonna sue back. I filed a defamation lawsuit against her, claiming that she was slandering my restaurant, costing me money and customers, and with my lawsuit being started against her way later, things actually played out in 2 different court cases and days. The first was her against me, where I went in with all of my evidence. Her again being vague and just saying that I was having toxins spilling out into the town. When my lawyer pressed her for exactly what it was, she was forced to say it was the smoke, and when asked if she was smelling the meat cooking and that was the poison she was talking about, she said yes. She was trying to go on a rant about how even the smoke from meat can get into people's systems and make them sick. Karen would have probably gone into a whole "I would give her cancer" spiel if she didn't get cut off and forced to stop talking. It was a quick ruling, as no judge or court was gonna make me close my restaurant because she did not like the way it made the air smell. It's just not something that's gonna happen. She was angry and I was free to go and run my restaurant again. However, then the lawsuit against her came to court. Again, she was not shy to admit the things she was saying about my restaurant. This time, the more she talked about the things she said, the better it was, calling my restaurant toxic and poisonous and that nobody should eat there, despite the food being fine and her just being a crazy vegan. I wanted money. Since she had cost me the reputation of my restaurant, I was now going to need to rebuild, showing how the sales dropped heavily as soon as she started making up these lies. I was granted the money, and let me tell you that Karen was furious knowing that her money was going to the meat industry basically, and she couldn't do a damn thing about it. I still had to fix my restaurant reputation, so I did the only thing I could. I went online to all the local sites and told my story, including what the court rulings were and assuring people that my food was safe to eat. Slowly, as people learned what happened, they came back and I was smoking meat for these good people again. I was also waiting, almost on like the tips of my feet, for Karen to walk back in one day. I had banned her, so if she tried she would be thrown right out. I don't play games like that. She never did though. I didn't know which house exactly was hers, so I couldn't tell you if she moved away or just gave up. I guess I should just be happy that she is gone and not pry lest she appears again. Before this, I always thought vegans were just kind of a new generation of hippie, all about peace and love and stuff like that, not the angry Karen that I had the displeasure of meeting. Unless she's just an outlier, and most are not like that. And the next one is titled Fake Vegetarian. Okay, so just to preface this, I'm a cabin crew member, flight attendant. I've been doing it for over 10 years. Any issues that crop up during my workday, I'll bend over backwards to accommodate people if I can. However, there are unfortunately a handful of people that are dishonest to try and get what they want. Fake injuries to try and get upgraded, fake birthdays, you name it. People have tried it all, and believe me, I've had loads of scenarios where people try to cheat the system because it makes them feel special or that they have one-upped me, I guess. Let me tell you about a fake vegetarian I had on board. He was flying in economy, coach, in the second from last row. He wanted the pasta option. I apologized and told him due to popular demand we had ran out in the middle of the cabin, but we had the chicken option instead if he wanted that. Without skipping a beat, he said, "I'm a vegetarian. Last time they brought me a meal from business class, so I will just wait for that." Now, this is something I would have offered anyway as a nicety, if available, as I'm not too much of a dick and I genuinely like helping people out if I can. After all, it's a 747, not a 7-Eleven, as the saying goes. Anyway, the way he just expected it right off the bat before I could even offer a solution left a slightly bad taste in my mouth, and I also smelled a rat. I was 99% sure that I had cleared in an empty packet of smoky bacon crisps from him earlier on, and no, they were not a veggie brand, as I have the same ones occasionally. I was certain that he was being picky and wanted a higher quality meal. Plus, any regular flyer would know how often we run out of the veggie option and to pre-order a veggie meal. I said, it's unfortunate that you didn't pre-order a vegetarian meal. Or vegetation meal, I guess. I will see what I can do for you though, just give me 5 minutes to finish up here. Anyway, I went up to business class. They had also run out of the veggie option, so I went to first class and asked if they could spare anything. We ended up putting a few leaves together with a bit of dressing. They spent £1,000 more up there and can dine at any time, so they didn't want me taking any of the hot veggie options in case someone wanted it later. Fair enough. Then I thought I could probably have some fun with this fake vegetarian. Cue my malicious compliance. I brought it back down on a silver tray and held it above his eye line so he couldn't see what it was. I explained that unfortunately the vegetarian business class option had run out, and then he went to cut me off so he could complain, but I held up my hand and said, however, I managed to go one step further and I got the last vegetarian meal from first class. Then I pulled the linen cloth off the top of the tray as I placed the salad down in front of him. It really was a very basic but large salad, and his face said it all. His face went from a smug, "Ha, I worked the system," to "What the hell is that?" within 2-3 seconds flat. He then said, "I wanted something hot, I'll just have the chicken then." I put on a shocked face and said, "I cannot give you that, sir, I would feel awful." He responded with, "Don't worry about it, it's fine." I gave him an, "Are you sure you're a vegetarian? What the hell look," and brought back the chicken, by which point it had been sat drying up in the oven a little bit longer. Bon appétit. Just to say, even if he was a real vegetarian, he should have pre-ordered. The same goes for gluten-free, vegan, children's meal, diabetic, etc. And the next one is a malicious picky Karen story. So I used to work at a Tex-Mex restaurant, you know, the ones that charge like $12 for a taco. I had a customer come in and she asked for 2 quesadillas that was gluten-free, cheese-free, vegan-free, hell, I don't know, everything else free. I told her everything we normally put on it and she said no to everything. So basically all she wanted was our gluten-free wrap with lettuce and tomato. Okay, that's fine, but if I put this like that into the system, it will be $12 a piece. I can just get you a lettuce wrap with tomato and it will be $2.25. I was even gonna heat it up a little, the bread for her, and I tried 2 times to explain this to her and she interrupted me and said, "I know what I want the quesadilla this way, and if you cannot understand, then go to the manager." So I understood her, got it made the way she wanted and brought it out. She gave me a smirk and was like, "See, I knew you could do it." That made my blood boil and I was in shock that she was so dense. Once the bill came, she grabbed it and before I could walk away, she yelled, "Excuse me?" so loud the surrounding tables all stopped. "Yes ma'am, what can I help you with?" I asked. "Why the hell is it $24 for my 2 quesadillas?" "Because the price on the menu is $12 each." "Yeah, but I didn't get any of the included items." "Yes, but you ordered 2 quesadillas, therefore that is what you got charged for." She of course spoke to the manager, who sided with me, and the lady paid her bill, the full $24 for those quesadillas. I did not, however, get a tip. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Many people may say that family is a blessing, but what they don't say is that they can also be a curse. And in my case, the family that should have loved and protected me instead hated and disowned me for no fault of my own. From a very young age, I was the subject of neglect from parents that would rather gamble and drink than take care of me, and this only got worse as I got older. When I turned 7 years old, my brother vanished and my parents could not care less. After an investigation, the police dropped them as prime suspects, and life went on as if my brother never existed, back into the daily cycle of alcohol-induced rages or lottery losses. Many years later, I managed to free myself a little bit when I moved out for college, where I met my girlfriend, which is now my wife. It was sad to see that my family had no love for her either, often using her as a target for racist abuse or unwarranted complaints. This proved to be the final straw, as after I graduated I finally cut ties with my family, to which they only became more angry and inhospitable. 2 years later, my life was finally on the up and I had been scouted for a great position in a tech company, and we were moving out of a tiny apartment into a quaint house in the suburbs. That all changed when my company made a grave error by sending a payslip to an old address which was my parents' house. Shortly after I was made aware of the slip-up, I got a call from my parents, the first one since I disowned them, and they sounded like they had been replaced by imposters. Additionally, before I forget to mention this, because otherwise some parts of the story might make no sense, so I managed to make some good investments in my adult life which paid off, and some would consider me wealthy or even rich. I was very lucky with this, and I feel very fortunate to be in this financial position, as well as having a well-paying, decent job. Everything that I had previously known about them had supposedly changed. They were now apologetic, polite, and suspiciously friendly. They had gotten my mail and asked to drop it over, which I reluctantly allowed but did not tell them my address. In a complete absence of character, they were still proving to be nice people, very suspicious when I knew their real faces. Cutting the small talk, I asked for my mail, to which they returned sheepish looks handing over an empty envelope. They stuck to the story that the envelope had always been empty, even though a glint in their eye gave me serious doubts. Frustrated, I turned to leave when they held me back, their true aim now apparent as they forced documents of late rent into my hands. I had no intention to pay it, yet by some magic or ingrained childhood conditioning, I found myself unable to refuse them when they swapped from begging to demanding. Past events flashed by me from deep trauma. They then let me go shortly after. Despair hung over me like a black cloud for most of the week thereafter, and I broke down when I recalled to my wife later what had happened. The only silver lining we could agree on was that it was probably just a one-time thing, because I could easily get my details changed at work so the mistake would not be repeated. Just as I had begun to feel like my old self again, I received another phone call the following week. My parents wanted something else. This time they lamented my treatment throughout childhood and encouraged me to arrange a holiday we could all go on together as a family, with very strong suggestions of the Bahamas. As the necessity and urgency of their plea turned into a strict demand, I faked a bad signal and put the phone down, struggling with the idea of conflict. The phone rang 6 more times over the next hour before it finally fell silent. After a long and reassuring talk with my wife that evening, we agreed I would answer them next time and finally stand up for myself. The next morning I was in the office when I heard their chilling voices again, answering a call I expected was my wife. Strangely though, they did not mention the idea of a vacation again, maybe smarter than to push their luck on something I had already denied. Their request this time again tugged on feelings of familial love that I knew never existed, even though they tried their best. They wanted to move out of their dilapidated apartment to be closer to me, to reunite our dear family, which was utter crap. Directing me cordially to a website, they showed me the idea for their new house, a mega mansion in the suburbs. I tried to tell them how it was nowhere close, but to every objection I had, they had a perfect excuse to use against me. After a heated few minutes of back and forth, I told them plainly, "I'm not buying this," to a response of immediate outcry and resent. Unlike the vacation, they repeatedly asked for the house, calling day and night in a war of attrition. What started off as one sporadic call from the once per month when their bills came due now turned to daily pestering as they turned to me for every little need they had. I regretted ever letting them back into my life, but now I knew that roaches like these people would not be so easy to get rid of. I tried once to refuse them gently, only then to be met with hysterics and an abundance of manufactured guilt as they tried forcing me to dance to their tune. If saying no was not possible, I needed another way to be rid of them. As I sullenly focused on my dilemma, one evening my mutually suffering wife approached me with a crazy scheme of her own, born from her experience as an estate lawyer. So the next week I stopped by my parents' house as a surprise, carrying with me a whole stack of important documents. They got confused by the big words on the paper, so I had to explain it carefully to them. I was buying them the house they wanted. I tried to say more, but they only heard what they wanted to, so I gave up with the details. All they needed to do was sign it and it would be theirs completely. What they did not read though was that after the first payment, the mortgage and all its fees would be their responsibility. A month later, my wife and I decided to go on that vacation after all, relaxing on a beach in the Bahamas when we got a panicked voicemail, mostly belligerent except for their favorite word, money. I did not return their call and we had a lovely extended trip. When I returned home, I was greeted by the news of their arrest, which had been plastered over the local morning news. Unsurprisingly to me, they had refused to cooperate during their eviction and even got violent, resulting in the intervention of police and reinforcements. The last time I ever heard from them, they begged me for help, for a lawyer, for anything. I said okay, but first I wanted a fresh start and my childhood back. Update to the story. Many of you were asking me for an update on my story and what happened to my family after they got evicted and got violent with the police. I left out some details in the original story because it was difficult for me to overcome the trauma and talk about it. Anyway, here we go. So the sun was beating down on the courthouse steps as I made my way inside, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. After years of abuse and neglect, I was finally going to get justice. I had spent countless hours working with the prosecutor to build a strong case against my entitled family members, and I knew that the evidence we had was overwhelming. As I took my seat in the courtroom, I watched as my family members were let in, their heads down and their faces filled with shame. They looked nothing like the proud and entitled family that had tormented me for years. Instead, they were disheveled and defeated, a far cry from the people who had once held power over me. The legal consequences of their actions were severe. The charges against them included fraud, extortion, and assault. They had attempted to extort money from me by falsifying documents, and when I refused to comply with their demands, they had resorted to violence. Also, they attacked my pregnant wife simply because they did not like her skin color and did not want a mixed-race baby in the family. The court had also uncovered evidence of their involvement in the disappearance of my older brother years ago, something that had haunted me for years. The trial was long and arduous, filled with testimony and evidence that made my blood boil. My family members tried to deny their wrongdoing, but the prosecutor was relentless, exposing their lies and deceit at every turn. As the days went by, it became clear that the judge was not gonna go easy on them. The judge handed down a sentence that was fitting for their crimes. My parents received a long prison sentence, while my other family members were given a variety of sentences ranging from probation to prison time. As they were led away in handcuffs, I could not help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Finally, they were going to pay for the pain and suffering they had inflicted on me. But even as I watched them being taken away, I could not shake the feeling of anger and hurt that had been with me for so long. I thought about my older brother who had disappeared so many years ago. The court had uncovered evidence that suggested my family members had played a role in his disappearance, and the thought of what they might have done to him filled me with a sense of dread. In the weeks that followed, I worked closely with the police to try and uncover the truth about what had happened to my brother. We dug through old records, interviewed witnesses, and even conducted searches of my family members' properties. And eventually, we found what we were looking for. Hidden away in a dusty old box in my parents' attic was a stack of old letters and photos that shed new light on my brother's disappearance. It seemed that my family members had been involved in a scheme to defraud my brother of his inheritance, and when he had threatened to go to the police, they had made him disappear. The discovery was shocking, and it left me reeling with a mixture of anger and sadness. But it also gave me a sense of closure, knowing that I finally had the answers I had been searching for all these years. As I walked out of the courthouse, I could not help but feel a sense of relief. I was finally free of my entitled family, and I could start a new chapter in my life, one where I could be surrounded by love and support, and something that had been missing from my life for far too long. And even though the road ahead would be long and difficult, I knew that I had the strength and determination to make it through. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.